Hey everyone, good evening and welcome to this Tuesday edition of the Angela Ray Show. I hope that you all have had a fantabulous day and you are winding down for the evening. On last night, we kicked off a brand new series called From Lemons to Lemonade, and that series continues tonight. For everyone who will be catching this broadcast on the replay, thank you so much for tuning in and being a supporter of the Angela Ray Show. For all of my live viewers, you know what to do whenever you get a chance to get on the broadcast. Go ahead and do me a favor. Slide into those comments. And I didn't see this last night, so I'm going to give you all an opportunity to do this again. Maybe some of you got on the broadcast after I made this request. Normally, oftentimes, I'll just tell you to go ahead and let me know where you're broadcasting from. But tonight, I want you to tell me what your favorite flavor of lemonade is or your favorite brand of lemonade. So whether you are just loyal to that Chick-fil-A, whether you good old fashioned country time, or you like it, very, very simple. You want to go with that Minute Maid, whether you do the strawberry lemonade, whatever is your flavor, go ahead and let me know what it is. Now, to be clear, this series has nothing to do with drinking lemonade, nor does it have to do with the beehive. So y'all don't come at me. But this is all about people who faced some extraordinary obstacles and overcame those obstacles. And so, as I said, looking forward to my guest for tonight. Now, social distancing in Tarjay. Do I need anything? You know what? I could use some more masks, Edwin. I don't know how you're going to get them to me, but you can never have too many masks, with what's going on right now in the world. So, at the top of the program, it is time for our Ray of Motivation moment. And for tonight's Ray of Motivation moment, I want to go ahead and give a shout out, a happy anniversary to Ken and Karen Canyon. They are celebrating their anniversary on tonight. For those of you who've been keeping up with the show, you know that they were one of only two couples that have been on the show thus far. And they're just one of my favorite, absolute favorite couples. So tonight's Ray of Motivation moment actually comes from the interview that I did with Ken and Karen some weeks ago. And so I'm just going to pose the question, are you right? Are you right? And specifically from that interview, Ken was talking about choosing a partner, choosing a life partner, and specifically choosing the wonderful wife that he has. And so he was transparent in sharing what was going on at the time when he was dating his wife. He said he had been dating someone else. And so when he decided he was going to break it off with that young lady, she said, "Well, what was wrong with me?" And his response was, "It's not so much about what was wrong with you, but what was right with her." And so we are all right for the right thing, for the right purpose, for the right person, for the right job, for the right position, for the right neighborhood. But you got to recognize that just because you want a position, you want a job, you want a person, doesn't mean it's the right fit. And at the same time, just because it's not the right fit doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. So I would challenge you over the next few days to find out if you're right. If you are right, or if you in the right place, as some people say, being in the right place at the right time, if you are in the right place right now for where you are supposed to be. Again, happy anniversary to Ken and Karen Canyon. Collectively and together, they are known as the Grand Canyons. All right, so tonight, part two of Lemonade continues, and I am excited to welcome my next guest. She is a native of North Carolina and a graduate of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. She is an actress. She is also a drama-free drama coach. She is an author of a book as well. You all may have seen her on shows like Army Wives, One Tree Hill, Greenleaf, and most recently, she rolled right on up down to the BET on the Oval. So please help me welcome Nevaina. Sounds like lasagna. How you doing, Nevaina?
All is well, Summer. How are you?
I am doing so well. Now, of course, we are still, many of us, depending upon where we are, we're still in the midst of this social distancing and staying at home. So during this time, this period from about March, about mid March when everything shut down, what have you been up to? What's
You
kept you
know, it
busy?
it has been a fantastic season for me. In fact, I had to bring the word for service at church on Sunday. And the inspiration that I got was around how to navigate through this coronavirus wilderness experience, right? And there's one definition about wilderness, particularly the quote unquote Genesis land or the Negev region, which
Mhm.
is a region that is known for its spiritual and emotional heightened senses, right? So you
Okay.
can really breathe easy, you can think highly. It's just a place of real elevation. And I think that that's what this time has been for me, just being still, not running around, not going to restaurants, not having to do that morning and evening commute. I spend at least an hour and a half both ways in terms of taking my children to school. And so I gained 4 hours back just from that alone, right? So I spent a lot of time just really redefining myself, creating more digital products, also working on more online coaching and how to translate my coaching instrument into the Zoom or virtual experience more effectively. And of course, I took some me time, just those days when you just get up when you wake up. I had a lot of
Yes.
those. And so that really has helped me to maintain peace and balance and just self awareness during this time. And just being very, very grateful. I have found some really innovative ways to generate income during this crisis. And in fact, made more in some of the months of this crisis than in some of the months prior to. And I think that's just really been divine favor and being obedient to just be still and not worry. I couldn't get myself in the space of being fearful because my faith was so anchored to the fact that I heard you're coming out better than you went in.
Come
And
on
so,
now. Come
yeah,
on
I
now.
was, I have you, I have witnessed that, and I have kept reminding myself of that whenever I would see something on the news that would cause anxiety to come up. I would remind myself of what I heard. You're coming out better than you came in. And so I held on to that. So it's been good.
Awesome. Now, I talked to, in introducing you, and someone said, "Love that introduction. I need to be your hype person." But you've been my hype person before, so you are spectacular. You've done a lot of things. I just mentioned the fact that, some of your acting credits, and of course, you've spent 2 decades being a drama coach. However, you have other talents in the artistic field. You are a poet. You are a rapper. Like you be dropping bars. We're not gonna have you do that on the show tonight. We're not going there.
Thank you,
However,
girl. Coco Sexy don't need to come out tonight.
but just how did you find that love and that yearning for performing? When did that start for you?
It is very funny that you ask. I did my very first character, I think, when I was like 4 or 5. And I don't know if you remember this movie because it is ancient. It's one of, I think, Cicely Tyson's breakout role when she played Jane Pittman.
Yes.
And I put my mom's shirt over my head and I came into the living room and I said, "My name is Jane Pittman." And my mother just laughed, and I had her whole monologue memorized. The monologue that she
Ooh.
did sitting on the porch, how the movie
Mm-hmm.
opened. I had memorized it. And whenever someone came to the house, my mother would say, "Nevaina, come do Jane Pittman." And, the actress officially, I think, was born. And I've just always loved writing. I've been writing, I had poems I went to my mom's, and my mom keeps pretty much everything. And she had one of my poetry books from when I was like 7 or 8 years old.
Mm.
And it was quite profound. I mean, I was like, wow, what kind of 7 year old is this? But I've always loved the creative expression. And I think that acting is the closest thing to a real definition of faith, calling those things which be not as though they are. That is what acting is. And so it really allows me to express myself not only artistically, but spiritually, to be able to communicate those realities that don't necessarily exist in the right now, but exist somewhere in the human experience. And when we can do that in our own lives, we can pull those things into our lives that don't necessarily exist now, but that
Mm-hmm.
we desire, that we experience, that we imagine, and we can make it so. So I have been fortunate to be able to use that not only in my craft, but also in my coaching. And it just comes naturally. It was a innate gifting, and it's something that I love to do. And that aged question about purpose, what would you do even if you didn't get paid to do it? It would be acting and the drama therapy and drama coaching for me.
So, how, artistic expression, learning monologues at the age of 4. How did, and you said you were writing poetry at 7. How did
Yes.
that kind of, I'm just curious, steer into doing a little bit of rap for a while? Because, they were playing your song on K97.5 for a
I
minute.
know. But you know that this is an interesting story because I have one brother, it's just the two of us, and he's a phenomenal beatboxer. Now he's 40 something, so he doesn't do that anymore. But back in the day, girl, he was Dougie Fresh. And
Okay.
so we would get ready in the morning and he would beatbox and I would rap. And my mom had this thing where she would give me a word or something to rap about, and I just make it up off the top of my head while my brother was doing the rhythm. And that was a part of our routine for either ironing clothes in the morning or eating our cereal or whatever. So I just because I am a wordsmith and I love language, and rhythm is in most of us. And so that would just be a pastime. And it eventually translated into my meeting a owner of an independent record label. And I was not as confident about my singing as I was about my rapping. And he felt like I had a look that could work for music. And so Coco Sexy was born, and I became a rapper for a moment. And actually, I still use it because I do an experience at the church called Sankofa Speaks. And it is basically a open mic experience. And at the close of each Sankofa Speaks experience, I do what's called Give Me a Word. And I'll take one word either from everyone in the audience or from every pew, just depending on how many people we have. And I'll make up a poem right there on the spot. And really, that's just rapping spoken, So I'm still doing it now, but I don't have as much beats with it, I guess.
So you have worked with some phenomenal people in the
Amen.
entertainment industry. You've worked with Tyler Perry on House of Pain, as well as most recently The Oval. You've worked on Greenleaf, which is on the Oprah Winfrey Network. Oprah Winfrey is one of the producers on that show. You've been on Army Wives. What has that part of your journey been like to take, the steps from being a 4-year-old and doing Miss Jane Pittman's monologue to now I'm working with some of the most powerful people in Hollywood.
Yeah, it is. It is awe inspiring for me because I think that in anyone who has an appetite for success, I've heard that often they will look at where they are right now and sometimes feel like I'm not where I could be or should be or want to be. But I think there's always the charge to look at how far you have come, and it moves you into a space of greater gratitude. And so when you ask me that question, I have to start first with I'm thankful. I'm so very grateful. Um, there are within my experience some like standout moments for me, right? One of which was when I got the opportunity to do For Colored Girls, the play, directed by Jasmine Guy, starring Nicole Ari Parker and Crystal Fox and Robin Givens, Danielle Deadweiler, Yakini Horn, and Omelika Kuumba. And we created this award winning ensemble of the play that literally was the moment I committed to, I want to act professionally, right? In fact, I saw the performance at UNC in the Great Hall, and Donna Bisco was the lady in green.
At
And
UNC at this performance?
yes, when she came to perform there, and I think Lisa Nicole Carson may have been in that cast as well. I don't remember hers distinctly, but I do remember Donna Bisco, because then when I moved to Atlanta, Donna Bisco played my mother in my first SAG House role, you know, theater wise, right? So looking at these full circles of opportunity, of engagement, of exposure, of the friends that I've made. You know, Nicole, Ari, and I, we're still good friends now. We don't talk as frequently, obviously, but she is such a real sister to me because of that experience. And Crystal Fox, just that whole cast, you know, they like my sisters from different misters now, right? Because that play bonds you in a real way. And I think we ran with that for like 8 weeks or something like that. So we were around each other for a long time. But I think that that experience in and of itself serves as a reflection of what my entire journey has looked like, in that I've met wonderful people, I've had phenomenal opportunities, I've created lifetime relationships, and I've gotten to do what I love, do it well, and get paid well for it. So who can ask for more than that, baby? That's like living my best life. What? Um,
Right.
so yeah, I'm very, very grateful.
So we got a question from a fellow Tar Heel. How did you have the
Okay.
courage and confidence in your gifts to pursue a career in the creative arts?
How did I have? I didn't know anything different, right? I think that when you start things young, okay, so when you're young, you can be a rock star, you can be a veterinarian, you can be a go-go dancer, all of that. And in your mind, no one can tell you that that's not possible, right? And so because I started the pursuit in that age of possibility, when I could do anything, have anything, be anything, and didn't have to apologize for none of it, I think that that established in me the creative confidence that I needed to be able to discover the gifts that I had. And
Mm-hmm.
then I grew up in a very supportive home as far as just my talents and my desire to dance and being creative and all of that. And my peers respected my gift. You know, I had a conversation with one of my former classmates, and she's like, Nevaina, you have more creativity in your pinky than some people have in their whole body. And then people would ask me, you can sing, you can dance, you can draw. What is it that you can't do? And I always had my thing. I don't play an instrument, right? So that's my thing. I'm going to one day learn either to play the piano or the guitar. But, you know, I don't do that. but there was never that spirit of envy. There was always this exhortation and appreciation for what my gift made people feel, be it something empowering, inspiring, or something that snatched them out of their numbness. And because they were grateful for my sharing my gift, I had more permission to share it freely. So I never feared saying, I'll do it, I'll try, pick me, you know. Um, and then just humble. I think humility is oftentimes underrated and misdefined, right? Because there is a space of humility where we recognize that it is that I recognize it is me co-laboring with the divinity in me, but it's not all about me, right? And so that in and of itself keeps me grounded, keeps perspective, and keeps me grateful. And that helped with my confidence, you know?
So we got another question that's somewhat similar, which is how would you encourage someone who wants to perform but is afraid to get started?
Right. I think that the definition, as well, the acronym FEAR, you may have heard frequent, I'm sorry, false evidence appearing real. I like to offer frequent excuses and regrets. And so
Mm.
when I put that in front of myself, I then press myself to be afraid, but do it anyway. You know, fear only stops you if you allow it to. Sometimes fear makes you fine tune your instrument because it gives you just that electricity and that energy underneath a scene or in an audition that makes you feel alive and not stiff or dead. So the way we embrace fear can often help us to function in the midst of it, right? And then if not now, when? And if not you, who? And if you have no reason not to, then just find that one reason why to, right? Because when you find your why, you can find your way. Is it something that you've always loved as a child? If it's is it something that you just look at and you say, man, I could do that. I think I can do that. And so give yourself permission. Even if you got to write a permission slip, you know, it sounds
Hey
silly,
now.
but yeah, it sounds silly, but at the same time, it creates a covenant between your mind, your will, and your emotions that I am giving myself permission to do this special or different or daring thing in my life. Just like when I have to sign permission slips for my kids at school, that means that that school day is not going to be an ordinary day. They're going to do something different. And so I write myself permission slips, you know, maybe not about this arena, but I have things that I have to stretch and believe for and get my gumption up about. And so I will literally write, Nevaina, I give you permission to, and fill in that blank. And so when I feel that procrastination or I feel defeated or discouraged, I pull out my permission slip. I just, you know, I say, hey, girl, give yourself permission to do this. Yeah.
So we got another question, and this is a blast from the past. If I remember correctly, you were an Opeo dancer. And if
Oh,
so,
yes, I was.
a throwback. What was your favorite piece?
What was my favorite piece? Girl, bye. I can't remember like what, like the name of the dance. Oh
I-
no, I can't. I'm sorry. I'm not gonna be
okay.
able to remember that. But I will say this. Um, I had graduated from the North Carolina School of the Arts in Winston-Salem. That's where I graduated high school. And my major there was modern dance. So I love dancing. It was really one of my passions. I think I was in Opeo Dancers only one semester, whereas I believe I was in the Ebony Readers like all 3 or 4 years that I was there. So that's probably the social club that I was most involved with. But I do remember at least wanting to, and I'm not sure if we did, the Alvin Ailey Revelations. I
Mm-hmm.
think we did that with Opeo dancers because it was like one of my favorite pieces as far as dance, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And they did it as a closing thesis dance when I was at the School of the Arts. And there was this dancer, Tiffany, what was her name? Tiffany Musindin. Now, see, I remember her name. Honey, she did that leg extension and when she lays back in Revelations, and whoo, girl, I had like a come to Jesus moment. It was just so powerful. And the energy that moved from her body, it was for me that spiritual definition: in God we move and breathe and have our being. Just seeing her do that dance, and the passion and the strength and the agility and the flexibility, all of those things are things that I want to continue in my life. And although I don't dance like nowhere like I used to, I have my moments in my living room where I just love dancing and kicking and spinning and just moving so that I can feel very much alive. And dancing to me makes me feel that. And I'm sure that when I was an Opeo dancer, that's what I loved about being able to continue that experience, even though I was no longer at a school for the arts. I was still able to find all of these different plugs for my artistic expression.
So you're talking about dance and movement, and we were just talking about just these amazing heights that you've had in your career. So
Mhm.
let's think back a few years. You had an opportunity to audition for a series regular role. And of course, for the actor who is pursuing a television career, that is where we want to be. We want to be having that regular check every single
Hey,
week.
Mano, girl, you say that again, you be right twice, okay?
So you have this audition, this series regular audition. You're at Tyler Perry Studios in with casting director Alpha Tyler, and something happens. Talk about that day.
Yeah, that was June 3rd, 2011. A day that will live in infamy for pulling those words. Yes, I was auditioning for the show For Better or For Worse. And I was auditioning for the reoccurring role. I think her name was Michelle. And I was in front of Alpha Tyler. I finished the audition and she said, "That was wonderful. I'd love for you to stay and read for producers," right? Now, in the midst of my audition, my entire left side went numb. I mean, that whole part of my body just went out the room without me. And so I'm standing there and I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And so she asked if I could stay, and I said yes. And I go out into the lobby and I start Googling left side numb. And the word that keeps coming up is stroke. Now, at this time, I'm not overweight. I've never smoked. I've never drank. I don't have any high blood pressure. And in fact, just 3 weeks before this day, I had a full physical because I was in the movie Good Deeds. And because of my role, I was included in the top billing and needed to have insurance until the premiere of the film. So I had just gone and had a physical, and everything was better than excellent, right? So this word stroke wasn't making any sense to me. But the look on my face was such that a fellow actress of ours, Shamir Love, she says, "Nevaina, what's wrong?" And I said, "My left side is numb." And she says, "I don't want to alarm you, but that's the signs of a stroke, right?" So at this point, my foot is numb, everything, my tongue, my foot. So I take my shoe off And it felt like when you sleep on your body wrong and, it's like numb, or like when you go to the dentist and it's numb. So at that point, I go back into the audition room with only one shoe on, and I'm getting ready to do the second read for the producer. And I do it, and they say that was great. And Alpha said, "I see you don't have your no." She said, "I see you don't have your shoe on." I said, "Yeah." I said, "You know what? Let me take both of them off." So I take both shoes off. I do the audition barefoot, and they're like, "Oh, that was great. That's awesome." And she said, is everything okay? And I said, "Yeah, but I'm gonna go somewhere and have somebody look at me because something doesn't feel right." Right. So then I leave out of the audition room the second time, and one of my former students happens to be a writer at Tyler Perry Studios and sees me. And he's like, "Hey, Nevaina." And I go to hug him, and I just completely collapse in his arms. So now at this point, I can't stand up on my own. And they sit me on the sofa, they call the medic, and long story go away, I have to be carried from Tyler Perry Studios in an ambulance, right? And I get to the hospital, they do the MRI, and they discover that I have had a hemorrhagic stroke. Now, just for the layman listeners, such as myself, I didn't at that time know the difference between hemorrhagic and ischemic. But ischemic stroke is what most 98% of stroke experience, which is a clot. A hemorrhagic stroke is when blood is spilled on the brain, and that's about 2% of strokes that are experienced. And typically, in my case, it was because of a previously undiagnosed condition called moya moya, which happens in 1 in 2 million Americans. And it typically happens in Asian teenagers, right? And of course, I'm a moya moya expert now because I was researching everything. But just for the sake of brevity, it's basically when the vessels in your brain either constrict or completely close up, or collude is the medical term. And I had the bottom half of my right side had completely closed. And so on this day, one of the capillaries ruptured on my brain. Now, my godfather says I just got so excited because this was my big break. And so that's what brought my pressure, my blood up. But in reality, it was, I have to believe that all things are divinely ordered, right? And so when I was experiencing it, my facial symmetry, my smile, my articulation, all of that stayed completely intact. What left was just the feeling on my entire left side. But even as I sit here before you, I'm still numb to great degrees on my left side. Some parts of my body have hypersensitivity, some have hyposensitivity, some have no sensitivity. But that dance came into play because that's how I started walking again. I did it through a choreography conversation. And if you look at the experience of some stroke survivors, like some of them can sing but can't talk. Some can walk backwards but can't walk forwards. Some can run but can't walk. So the brain is such a mystery in terms of the functions and things that we do from more of an analytical side, and the things that we do from more of a creative or emotional side. And those categories can assign themselves to literally different sides of your brain. So I just borrowed the left side of my brain for the right side function of walking by turning it into choreography. But that did mean for a while, I literally had to, just like you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, I had to say in my mind, heel, toe, heel, toe, turn, so it was interesting. But I am a testimony in that many of the people who experience a hemorrhagic stroke in their thalamus area, which is where I experienced it, they don't walk, they don't talk, sometimes for up to a year before that comes back. And for me, I left the hospital using a walker. And my daughter, she's such a little prophet. She said, Mommy, don't worry about it. You'll be off that walker in 2 weeks. And literally 2 weeks to the day, I put the walker down and I was able to walk just with a cane. And I had my cane all blinged out, girl. It was leoparded and bedazzled. Um, and I used that for 2 weeks. And then within 4 weeks of the experience, I was walking unassisted. Now, I did have to wear sneakers. I got me some of those New Balances with the big heel. So, girlfriend wasn't putting on no pumps for a minute, but I was able to walk. And I think, I don't know, Angela, I'm really still processing how, I'll say ironic because I don't have any other word, but that's not the word. That doesn't capture it. But the idea that I would be in Tyler Perry's studios auditioning for a series regular role, something that I've literally been dreaming about since I was 5, since that very first monologue experience, and experience a life altering and literally life threatening experience. And it pushed me into a real faith conversation. I remember once talking with Judge Glenda Hatchett, and she's a mentor of mine, and I love and respect her dearly. And she was talking about the death of her father. And she said that the Spirit said to her, are you going to live by faith or are you going to live by fear in that experience? And for me, this was that same charge. Am I going to live by faith or am I going to live by fear? And I chose the faith road. And so I prayed my way through it. I continue to believe that everything happens for a reason and all things work together for good. And I continue to be grateful for the fact that I was still alive, because that was a very good thing, and that what was left was more than enough. Right? So even though my left side was numb, I still had enough left to do what was necessary and to still see my dreams come to pass.
That is just amazing. And even, learning to walk again. And at one point, wasn't one of your legs, were they uneven?
Yeah, that well, it got shorter because I would favor my right side. So, if you heard me walking, it would be like thunk, tick, thunk, like that, right? So my left leg began to shorten. I mean, I think biologically, no one's leg is like exactly the same lengths, but usually the difference is very minute. But in my particular instance, because of the stroke and favoring my right side, which was compensating to some degree for the left, my left leg got much shorter. And so I had gone to a church service. And actually, it was Dominic Mitchell. Do you remember him from UNC? He was, do you remember
I
Dominique?
don't
No?
think so.
Okay, well, he was on the football team. And
Okay.
so Dominique and I, we've gotten to be friends now since we both live in Atlanta. I don't think we would, be friendly, but we didn't really hang out or whatever at UNC. So nonetheless, he had kept asking me, I have a church service at my home, and there's what's his name? Apostle John D. Reed is the pastor, but Dominique would allow him to do the service in his home. And so
Mm-hmm.
Dominique had been asking me to come, and I kept saying I was coming, and he lived way out, so I hadn't made it, right? So I think it was probably 3 or 4 years, Angela, after the actual stroke experience, right? And I had to wear flats. I hadn't worn heels because my balance and all of that. And then the leg had become much shorter. So I go to this service. I walk in. Dominique does not know I'm coming because I've been telling him I'm coming for however many years, but this time I came. Girl, I get there and the man calls my name. He says, Nevaina. And I'm like, he said, what's your name? I said, Nevaina. He said, yeah, come here. I came down and he says, where you perceive inability in your body, God is about to put ability. And
Mm.
I hear the Lord saying, no more stroke. Girl, I almost fell out. Do you hear me? And that was such a profound release for me because the condition in my brain, there was nothing they could do for it, surgically or medically, because my brain had compensated already for the condition. Because I had to have what's called an angiogram where they put dye in your brain. Girl, medicine is crazy. They put a thing in my thigh that went up to my brain and spewed dye in my
Mm.
brain, right? And so my brain lit up like a Christmas tree because I had all of these newly formed capillary systems to compensate for the moya moya condition.
Mm-hmm.
But the condition of my blood vessels still meant that the condition present, which allowed for the stroke, was yet still present in my brain, right?
Mm. Okay.
So I'm living with the affirmation that I shall live and not die, and just really believing that I'm healed. And there was still the medical reality that another stroke like that could happen again. So for this man to speak that prophetically to me, I was undone, to say the least, right? And so then he asked me what still remains, because I told him, you are spot on. I experienced a stroke, and I said one of my legs is shorter than the other, and I'm still numb on the whole left side. So he sat me in a chair. He spoke to my leg. He commanded my leg to grow in the name of Jesus. And I felt this shooting heat like swirl in my hip. It just felt like a swirling around and then shoot down my leg. And literally, my leg lengthened, and you could see like my knees go from like this to being straight. And I think it might still be on my Facebook page. I don't know how long they keep videos, but it was on video. And literally, I got home and I told my children what happened. I put on the highest heels that I owned. They were about like this.
Okay then.
And yes, girl, I put on my Magic City shoes.
Ooh.
And I was walking in my heels through the living room. And it was that I had not been in heels in 4 years. My leg was now the same length. And it was literally miraculous. I'm trying to articulate it, but these words don't cover what that experience was like, right? And it was it was interesting to have that experience and yet still be numb on my left side, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of reminded me of Paul when Paul kept saying, remove this from me. And 3 times the Lord was like, my grace is sufficient. So even in the midst of this numbness, I can still feel the grace of God, and I've still yet experienced the miracles around it, right? But it still keeps me in a space of believing, because because that happened in 2011, and I think for the first at least 3 years, because at first I thought I was going to be up and straight in 3 days. I had my 3 days in my mind. So then when the 3 days didn't happen, I said, okay, maybe it'll be 3 years. So every morning I would get up and put my feet to the floor and think, okay, this morning I may feel my foot, when I put it down. Um, and as 3 years became 6 years, became 8 years, I have learned that the measure of grace that we have for the adversities in life is the measure of grace that we need. And
Mm.
once you position yourself to have a made up mind about using what's left, you can be all right. Yeah.
All right now. Got a question from a fellow Tar Heel and soror. What motivated the
Oh,
coloring book? She said her grandmother loves it and she wants another one.
yeah. Okay, shameless plug. I got it right here. Wait a minute. Okay, there it is. There it is. What motivated the coloring book? Actually, it was the play for colored girls, because that's when I first wrote the content. I saw the images that were going to be there. I knew I could see the format of the book, because it's separated into chapters, and each chapter has its own focus, be it faith, hope, joy, So what caused me to want to write it, we would come out to the audience after each performance, and the audience would come and they would ask us questions, and either they come to the foot of the stage or sometimes they would come backstage. And we had so many mothers who were bringing either their young adult or teenage daughters to see the play, and both the mother and the daughter would just be in tears,
Mm.
because much of the trauma and heartbreak and betrayal that had been displayed on the stage was what they were experiencing or had experienced in their real lives. And I
Wow.
saw this generational cycle of emotional baggage. Sometimes the memory would be so visceral that the women like just was weeping and couldn't get themselves together, because all of this sort of trauma that had been forgotten or layered over, or you think just because that happened 10 or 20 years ago, I'm okay, and you're not okay. And I wanted to create an instrument of healing that could be easy to implement, right? And so coloring is used for post traumatic stress disorder. It's also used as a modality for psychological healing and working through issues. And I know as a little girl, when I colored, it was just, I could just let myself go, and just the sound of the crayons, the colors on the page, the images coming alive from these black and white lines to full color and dimension, it just did something to heal my soul and to excite my expectation. So I wanted to create a coloring book for women of color, so that the dynamics of the play for colored girls who considered suicide when the rainbow is enough could be healed and massaged, and we could breathe. So many times women of color in particular, we live our lives in these kind of fight or flight dispositions. And
Mm-hmm.
it can be for a variety of reasons, from domestic violence to I'm a single mother to I grew up without my daddy, whatever the narrative is, we often have that posture. And we don't have lifestyles often that lend to us going running or playing tennis, or we gonna do yoga every Saturday morning at 10. We just don't, our lives are not organized that way. So if I can create something that my sister can just sit either in the car or in her bed and just take 15 or 20 minutes to color this image, to work these worksheets, it's going to create a healthy pattern of breathing. It's going to create her putting into her mind thoughts and affirmations that inspire her. It's going to allow her to recognize just how beautiful and wonderful and dynamic she is. It's going to allow her to work through her challenges and the spaces where she needs to pay some attention to without condemning herself.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to do it in a way that's fun. Everybody doesn't want to lay on the couch and say, okay, this is what happened when I was 2. We don't want to do that.
Right.
But we'll sit down and we'll color. And when I see the women come together, because I do coloring parties and I have, women's seminars, and they're just laughing and coloring, and they go back to being like a little girl again. And so many of us need to give that little girl a hug. We need to give that little girl inside of us, again, permission to know that she is enough. And coloring
Mm-hmm.
opens the door to do that. So that's what inspired it. And that's what I hope that people get from it. And I'm so glad your grandmama is enjoying it. And you can also go to my website, which is iamnevaina.com, and you can order some more. You can also order it on Amazon. So it's called The Color of Inspiration. And if you look up on Amazon by my name, it comes up more easily because there's a lot of adult coloring books out there now. So sometimes you can't find it as easily.
Awesome. Well, Navanya, you have an amazing from lemons to lemonade story. Just to look at you now, to hear you speak, to hear you as articulate, as funny as you were the years before then, no one would ever know what you had been through. So I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to hang out with us tonight on the Angela Ray Show and share your story. Navanya's Instagram is scrolling down at the bottom of the screen. And of course, her website is I am Navanya, sounds like lasagna.com. Any final words before we wrap up, Navanya?
Well, Angela, I just want to thank you for inviting me to do this. And you are a ray of sunshine. I am so grateful for our friendship, which does span decades. I applaud you for creating your own lane, for mastering your gifts and talents and sharing them with others so freely. Sometimes I say you got to birth what you worth in the earth, and what's in you
Woo!
is meant to be shared and to be given so that it can live beyond you. And you are doing that. So thank you for having me here tonight. I bless this show and your endeavor. I pray that everyone who has listened has gotten something that will cause them to dare to build, to create, and to become, while also celebrating who you be right now, right?
Well, amen to that. Amen to that. Well, again, thank you so much for being here and enjoy the rest of your evening.
You
I
do the
would have you to wrap
same.
us out, but I won't do that.
Please don't, girl, because anything you can do, I can do it better. I'm just like that Mad Hatter, but you know that I am fatter. I'm giving it up. I'm giving it what? I'm giving it all of the applause because this is for y'all, all for the cause.
All right there now. See there? See there? Didn't even know.
It's
Don't
like
even
riding a
know what I
bike,
was
girl.
gonna
You
do.
just got to get back on it.
Awesome, awesome. All right. We'll be here joking around all night, but enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Blessings
Good
to you,
night.
sis. Bye
Thank
bye.
you. All right, that's it for another episode of the Angela Ray Show. As always, I would like to remind you all of Ray of Motivation number 54. Cleaning a mirror does not change the person who is reflected in it. Until next time, I encourage you all to go out and be the change. Have a great evening.